In our last video, we started enhancing the Moodflip app, but we hit a snag. StackBlitz doesn't support seamless switching between repositories and Bolt.new, slowing down our progress. Enter Cline, an AI-powered VS Code extension that's like GitHub Copilot on steroids. It can create new files, run commands, and so much more. In this video, we'll set up Cline, explore OpenRouter for managing AI models, and continue building Moodflip app with powerful new features. Let's start by installing the Cline extension in Visual Studio Code. Cline is usually installed in the desktop version of Visual Studio Code. Although I wanted to use StackBlitz, it doesn't seem to work with StackBlitz version of VS Code. But don't lose hope because StackBlitz is not the only browser-based VS Code tool that we can use. We can also use GitHub Codespaces. So if we go to our GitHub account here, you click on code, usually you will see this. There's another tab that says Codespaces. You can create Codespace on main, which is the main branch of the repository. And let's wait while it loads our project. And then let's try if we can install Cline in this version of Visual Studio. So let's go to extensions. Let's search for Cline. Let's install. There you go. It's here, the Cline button. So it's already installed. You can also install the recommended svelte for VS Code. It's installed now. So we can close all of this. So to start with Cline, we need to set it up. So as we can see here, it supports a lot of large language models. All the main ones are here: Anthropic, Gemini, OpenAI. But since we're going to take advantage of even the free LLMs, we need to switch back and forth between models. So it would be tedious to enter a key separately for Anthropic and separate for API. So let's just use OpenRouter. So how can we get an OpenRouter API key? We can click this and we can log in using Google. I will go to keys and I will create a new key. So I copied the key. Let's go back to GitHub Codespaces and enter the key here. Then click let's go. Now since the repository is already open, let's try to run this. npm run dev. We will be asked to open in browser. If we click this, we will be able to preview our application in our browser here. So now let's try to make some changes to this application. Let's try to implement some enhancement. Let's ask Cline to do that for us. So we go to Cline. Let's see if we can change the model to something else because right now this is paid. So if we go to our keys and to OpenRouter and go to credits, we don't have a credit, but we have a less than $1 for small usage allowance before we need to pay. So this small credit will run out very quickly. So what shall we do? We need to select a free model. Let's go to model and search for something free. We can see a lot of free options here. Let's use this Gwen free version. We can go back to our main window here in Cline and then let's ask it to improve the UI. Cline wants to read this file. Let's approve. Now Cline wants to edit this file. Let's save. Let's save again. Let's save. Okay, so Cline is having trouble using the model that we selected. So it says here that for best results, it is recommended to use Claude 3.5 Sonnet. So we already tried using a free model, and if we want quality code, less frustration, we need to pay for it. I think that's fair. Let's go and use a paid key. We can keep on testing other free models, but for the benefit of shortening or making this video not too long, we're going to use Claude 3.5 Sonnet. I already grabbed a key in my other OpenRouter account with enough credits for this demonstration. We'll start with a new task. We'll go to the settings and select Claude 3.5 Sonnet. Let's use the beta one and then let's click on done. Now let's try that again. But before that, you can see that Claude made some changes here that we don't want to use because it's incomplete. So the benefit of using GitHub is we can revert those changes back to its original state before the changes. So let's discard all three files and close all of them, and then let's go back to Cline and let's say improve the UI UX of the app. Again, we would like to make some improvements to the UI here. Although I think it's already looking good, but let's see what else can be done, since we can always revert to previous version of the app. You can see here the API cost, the tokens used for input and output, and client wants to read this file, so let's approve. So the plan is examine the main file and review the current styling, make improvements. This API request cost me $0.0069. Overall, it already cost $0.0312. So it wants to read this file. Let's approve. So the plan is read mood flip, review the app CSS, and make some improvements. So now it's making some improvements and want to edit this file. Want to save the changes. Let's save it. Client is showing us in real time what part of the code is being changed, which is very cool. Let's permit client to inspect this website. So you see, I only prompt client to improve the UI UX, but it already did an amazing job editing the main files that we currently have without me typing any code. It looks like client cannot access localhost. Let's give it another chance. So I will exit this and let client do the running of the npm run dev. Let's click on proceed while running. Okay, now it's successfully able to determine the correct port. As you can see here, it tried to read the port 3000. Now it's trying to read the port 5173. Let's see if it can read it properly this time. There you go. It's now looking for the actual website itself, like we can see here, and it's reviewing the changes on its previous attempt in improving the UI and the UX, and it says that it has successfully improved the UI UX of the app, and the changes include color scheme enhancement, typography improvement, layout redesign, and now as we can see, unlike the deployed version that we have, which we will update later, is looking like this. Alright, so we were able to use Client to improve the UI UX. So we don't need to execute this because we already clicked the open browser before, so we can reject. Okay, now the task for that particular prompt is done. We can create a new task or continue working on this current task. With that simple prompt, we were able to improve our app from this to this. Isn't that amazing? Of course, we are not limited to just improving the UI and UX. What else can we improve in this app? But before anything else, let's update our deployed version of the app. We already set up GitHub and Netlify to have a continuous deployment. So we can simply go to the source control, stage all the changes, and put in our message here. Let's commit and push. We can check in the Netlify login, and we can see here our project, and now it's building the UI UX improvement by client commit that we just recently pushed. It's already published, so that means we can expect this version of the app to be updated. There you go. Fantastic. Now, what else can we do with Client? If we take a look at our deployed app right now, the situation is predefined as a fixed set of lists, and it's really not that helpful for us because what if we have experienced a different situation? So the obvious improvement that we can make is to make this part of the app to be a free text so that we can enter any situation we encounter. The challenge is, how can we flip an arbitrary situation? So we need AI generation or the help of AI to be able to flip any situation that we entered in the box. So let's approach this one step at a time. Let's go back to GitHub Codespaces and let's go to Client and let's click on Start New Task and let's prompt. Of course, if we're going to use an AI, we need to use an API key. Let's try this for now. I'm expecting client to ask us to input our API key. So let's see what else we can say here. Okay, let's try that. Okay, let's approve. Okay, so we can see here that it will remove those situations and positive responses because we don't need that anymore. Let's save. Okay, it says here that it It already made some changes. To fully implement this feature with real AI-generated responses, you will need to integrate an actual AI service API. So let's close this and then let's allow client to run the command. Let's open in browser. Now we can describe our situation here. For example, flip it. Look on the bright side. My car broke down. Is an opportunity for growth. So this is not really an AI generated response. So what it did, based on what I see here, is it added this part to what I said in my situation there, and then is an important opportunity for growth. So this is not really an AI generated response yet. Right now it's working well and it was able to create some placeholder at least. So according to Klein, we need to implement a real AI generated response. So let's start a new task. But before that, let's commit. I will not push so that it won't trigger the deployment. So let's go back to Klein. What we can do is use OpenRouter to generate a response. I'm not sure if Klein will be able to do just that because of how Claude 3.5 Sonnet is trained. Actually, I'm not sure if it has an idea of what OpenRouter is. So what can we do is give it more context. So now I will start a new task and I will go to OpenRouter. So we can use it like this. I know there's @ commands here. We can fetch the content. So base URL to fetch content. So let's try that. But we will specifically mention this. Okay, let's copy this. Okay, let's try that. Referencing an external documentation, specifically referencing this file. So it's asking us to read that file. Let's see first what it did to make sure. If we take a look, it removed the fixed implementation of generate positive response function. It also added some isLoading function because this will now take some time. Unlike before, it's just using a fixed response. Okay, so I already entered the key and let's save. The user has successfully updated the file, including the API key. Now it says the task is complete. Okay, now let's try. Let's wait. There you go. All right, so it works. So now what we can do is improve this by adding some emojis or making it shorter. Before we do that, let me commit this. So let's practice regular commits. Let's go back to Klein and actually we can start a new task and directly add the file because we know this is the only file it needs to analyze. And let's add the prompt, make the responses shorter, and let's guide the AI with more context. Okay, let's review the changes it did. Please provide a short. So mention short, uplifting, perspective of it. Use emojis where appropriate, concise, ideally 2 to 3 sentences. Okay, let's try 1 to 2 sentences. Let's also mention that since I forgot to mention that I want the responses to be funny, let's just do those changes here. Humorous. Then let's save. Let's go back to Klein. Let's save also there. Complete the request. It noticed that I made a slight modification. So let's try another situation. Look at it this way. At least you're helping fertilize the ground. Keep working forward. The next step will be cleaner and brighter. Nice! We can even request another flip for that. Look at it this way. Okay, looking good. So it cost me 0.06, and if we take a look at the previous changes we made, the costs are there. So 0.06 here, 0.03, 0.06, 0.1. This is the first improvement that we did, the UI UX. So it depends on our request. So now let's commit this again. Alright, so what other changes can we make? If we take a look at our current version of the app, this looks good already. But what I wanted is to have a flip history so that we can see the previous flips that we performed. So let's do that. Let's ask Klein to implement a flip history. So I will start a new task. I will start with adding the file so that it won't waste token to analyze the app to know which file to open. Alright, let's try that. So it uses now as belt store to store the flip history, and use local storage to get the flip history on load, on mount, and use local storage set item to update the list of history whenever we do some flips. And this will list down the flip history with pagination. Looking good. So let's save. Now it's completed. So let's go to our app and we can see here the flip history. So let's try again. Flip it. Look at it this way, your car is just taking an unplanned break to relax and recharge. You'll be back on the road in no time. Okay, so you can see here the title of the situation, and this is the response, complete with the time and date. Nice. So what I want next is to enable sharing of the positive flip, which includes the situation. So we will ask client to do that. So instead of starting a new task, I would just simply continue this conversation because it's related to the change we want to make. It added several functions here for different social media, and it added the share buttons on each items in the flip history. And we can see more changes here with the styles. So let's save it and let's see. There, we can share on Twitter, Facebook, and on LinkedIn. And let's try this again. Okay, so we can share on Twitter and Facebook. We can move on and on with the implementation or updating of our app here. We can say that while flipping, we can add more animation with it. So let's try that. Before we do that, let's commit this. And let's go back to client and say, I'm letting Claude to deliver on its creativity. So let's try that. Let's see what it will do. Let's save. It doesn't work. You can only have one top level style. So we can tell client to fix it for us. I will start a new task. So it's a good thing we encountered this error so that I will be able to demonstrate to you how to use Klein to perform debugging. So it looks like it still is erroneous, but let's see. Let's save. Now it was able to determine that there's an issue. Okay, so let's save. We are still facing a couple of issues. If we take a look at our API cost, it's slowly increasing. So I'm beginning to be nervous here. Let's try to save, even though I think we still have some issues. So the reason why Klein is making some issues here is because our component is fairly large. We save and looks like it was able to fix the issues. Now we can see the cost here is slowly increasing, and it did several changes again. Again, I'm just letting Klein to do its thing without interruption, just to see that how well it will perform with debugging and error handling. If this attempt still results to an error, I will stop the task and approach this in a different way. I will show you how to work with Klein to save money and to make it more efficient for us. And let's see what it did. I will save and I will cancel right in the middle. If it apologizes again, then we have a continued issue. That means it's not worth it to continue with this task. You see here that I spent almost $50 just to add some animation. It resulted to many other issues that cost us some money. So I will just discard the changes to put it back in its original state and then create a new task. So what I can do here is to do some refactoring because the model is having a difficulty in working with this component because it's large enough already. I will ask Klein to do some refactoring to break this component down into multiple components, smaller components, to make it more maintainable and easier to read also. So I will ask Klein to refactor. Okay, so it's creating a new file. Let's say yes. Yes, for the response card. Makes sense to have a different component for flip history, so yes, save. Share buttons is also repeated all throughout, so yes. And a separate mood flip CSS file is also a nice change also. Now it's cleaning up mood flip to use the new components and extracted styles. Let's approve. No, reject, because that's not the correct one. Can't find the share buttons. If you take a look, the buttons are here. Maybe I just need to click approve there. Let's run the server. Looks like the changes are messed up. Okay, so it's reverting back the changes it did. After this, I will step in and fix this myself. I don't think it's worth it to use Klein in this case anymore because it keeps making mistakes. I'll cancel this now because the cost is rising up. I will reject and I will cancel this task and see if I can fix this myself. Yeah, it's working fine, just the CSS is not working. We don't have any issues in the console, so I guess it's just a CSS issue. So we can simply copy this portion to every file. Did it work? Yep, fix the issue. Okay, somehow it worked because we are sharing a common CSS file. We are running into several warnings because, as we can see here in the MoodFlip component, we don't have use for pagination for the response cards. So what we can do is split this CSS file into its own component, so closer to its component. So let's see. So we can get the response card, cut it out, and then go to the response card. Instead of importing the whole file, we can just simply mention this. Little by little, we will be able to fix these warnings. So let's try that. Okay, so no more warnings. Looking good. Alright, we can now commit these changes. But let's try if this still works. Alright. And then let's now sync the changes so that Netlify will be able to publish the changes we did. And we should be able to see the change here now. Okay, nice. By the way, this is not a secure way of using an API here because anybody can go to your site and inspect the sources and be able to extract the API key this way. So here, so the API key is clearly visible, which is not secured. Other people will be able to capture this API key and use them, and it will cost you money. So this is not the ideal way, and on the future video we will fix this issue and we will start using a backend to be able to secure our API and save our blip history in a real database. We can do a lot of improvements to our app, but let's start with the most obvious one. Right now we are using Open Router API. Specifically, we're using the model OpenAI GPT 3.5 Turbo, which costs some money. Go to Open Router docs, and instead of using OpenAI GPT 3.5 Turbo, let's look for a free alternative. Let's try this. So I will simply need to replace the model with a new free model that we have. And I disabled this key for security purpose. So let me just enable it. Let's go back to our app and describe our situation. Yeah, it works. And if we look at the activity, we are using this model now, which costs us nothing. It's great. But I'm showing you that we can replace this model parameter with any model available in Open Router. This saves us a bit of money because we don't need to pay for the API usage or the positive flip generation here because we are using a free model. So what will happen if I disable this API key? So let me disable that. Let's go back to our app and try this again. Oops, something went wrong. Please try again later. So it's still flipping it positively, I would say, but behind the scenes it's not working because the API key is now disabled. So today we supercharged MoodFlip app using Klein and Open Router, adding powerful AI features with ease. In our upcoming videos, we'll explore Aider, a versatile alternative to Klein. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more AI-driven development tutorials. Thanks for watching and happy coding!